Next, let us see how we can implement the map function. But first, let me show you what do I mean to say. So here let us see the documentation. So I want to go to my module of enum and I want to see the documentation of map. So as you can see over here, so this map function, this takes a list of elements and it also takes a function. And what does it do? For each iteration, it simply applies this function to the element. So for example, we can see that the first element is 1 and this function is taking 1 and it is giving back 1 multiplied by 2. That's why we have the answer of 2 over here. Now we move to the next element. The next element is 2. So 2 multiplied by 2, we get a 4. The next one is 3. 3 multiplied by 2, so we get a 6 right over here. And we have one more example right over here. So in this case, this is a keyword list. And what this function is doing, it is pattern matching on the key and value pairs. And it is simply changing the value from a positive to a negative number. So for the first iteration, your key is the atom of A and the value is 1. And what this function is doing, it is returning back a negative value. So we have -1 right over here. For the next iteration, the key is the atom of B and the value is 2. And here we are simply flipping the sign. So that's why we get -2 right over here. So let us see how we can implement this function by using our list. So let us go back to our code editor and here let us create a new function called as map and let us see how we can implement this functionality. So this function is going to accept 3 parameters. The first is for our elements, the second one is for the function and the third one is obviously our accumulator. And also let us set the accumulator to be a blank list. Now before we can go ahead, I wanted to show you one more thing. All of these functions that we are defining inside the module, so this function of sum simple, sum of tail recursive, reverse, all of these functions are called as named functions. And they're called name functions because all of these functions belong to a module and in our case the module is called as tutorials.list. But in case for this function of map, we are passing an anonymous function. So this function does not belong to any module. So let us see how we can work with our anonymous functions as well. So what we can do is either we can create an anonymous function right where we require or we can define it separately as well. So suppose we define a function called as double and we can say that this is going to be an anonymous function and this function accepts some element and it simply returns that element multiplied by 2. Now remember the syntax, the opening is by fn, that stands for your function, the end happens with your end block right over here. Now in order to use this function, we have to use a dot notation. So in order to invoke this function, we can say that we want to invoke the anonymous function of double, but we want to pass the value of 2. And as you can see, we have to use the dot notation since this is an anonymous function. So keeping this thing in mind, let us go back to our code editor. So let me scroll down to our function definition and here it is. So as usual, first let us think about the base case. So let me just copy and paste. So the base case would be in case the elements are blank, that means it's just a blank list. At that time, we simply want to return back the accumulator. So we can say do and our accumulator. Now here what happens is we don't need this argument and we can do one more thing. Since we are not using the function, we can ignore it by using an underscore. So what this underscore means is we simply want to ignore the value of function in our base case. Next, let us have a look at our recursive case. So let me again copy and paste. Here as usual, let me pattern match on our head and our tail. The next is our function. And since this is a tail recursive function, we have to call ourselves back each time. So first let me ignore the first value. I will come to this a little later. Now the next argument is for the function and for each iteration, we simply have to pass the function as it is. We don't have to do anything with it. Now the third is where we collect our accumulator. Now inside the accumulator, what do we want to do is we simply want to take this function and we want to apply this function on our head. Now remember that since this is an anonymous function, we can use the dot syntax. So we can say Here first we want to take the function and use the dot syntax, and we want to apply this function on our head, and we simply want to append our accumulator at the back. Now let us come to the first argument. Now since we have used the head, the only thing left is to pass the tail, and that's it. Let me save the file and let us open up our IEX. Let us go inside our IEX and let me clear up everything, and let us try it out. So we can say tutorials.list.map, and we can say that our map is 1, 2 and 3, and the function that we want to pass is the same one. Let us take the element, and for each element let us simply multiply it by 2. Don't forget the end, and that's it, and we get the answer back. But as you can see, the order is not right. What has happened is we have reversed the list as well. So this 3 is right over here. So 3 multiplied by 2, it should be 6. But in our case, 6 is the first element, and 2 into 2, we have 4 over here. And for the first element is 1 into 2, and we have 2 right over here. But as you can see that this is not the right answer. We have reversed the order of our elements as well. So what we can do is, first we can call our tutorials.list.reverse, and inside this let us pass our map function. Let me just copy and paste it over here, and now we can see that we have the right answer 2, 4 and 6. But as you can see that this syntax can be confusing, so let me introduce you the pipeline operator. So let us paste the map function over here, and we can say that we simply want to take the output of this map function, and we want to pipe that output inside the new function, and the new function is our tutorials.list.reverse. Now here we don't need to specify the arguments. What happens is the pipeline operator simply takes the output of the previous statement, and it simply passes that output inside our function as the first argument. So let us press enter and let us see what's happening. So as expected, we get the right answer back, 2, 4 and 6. Let me clear it up. Let us do some more. So for example, if you want to reverse the same list, so we can invoke tutorials.list.reverse, and suppose in our case the list is 1, 2, 3 and 4. Now instead of using this syntax, what we can do is we can first take our elements. Here we can use the pipe operator. So we can say that I want you to take all of these elements and I want you to pass them to my tutorials.list.reverse. So what happens is we can use this pipeline operator in case if we have multiple transformations. So let us use the same example one more time. Here let us create an anonymous function called as double, and what we want to do is we simply want to take the element and we want to return that element multiplied by 2. And now let us see how we can use the pipeline operator. So for example, we have a list like this 1, 2, 3 and 4, and what we can do is we can take these elements and we can pipe these elements to our function of tutorials.list.map. Now remember that the function of map accepts two parameters, the elements and the function. Now here what happens is, since we are using the pipeline operator, these elements are passed automatically to the function of map, and the pipeline operator always passes these elements as the first argument. So since we have the first argument, we simply have to pass the second argument. So here we can say that we want to pass the anonymous function called as double, and for the accumulator we don't have to pass any value because the default value for the accumulator is an empty list. So let us see the output of this one. So we get the output of 8, 6, 4 and 2. Now what we can do is we can take the exact same expression and we can pipe the output of the map function to our reverse function. So we can use tutorials.list.reverse, and this time we get the expected answer as 2, 4, 6 and 8. Now instead of using the list.reverse, in fact we can use the inbuilt module. So if we go to the module of enum, so here we can say that we want to pipe the output into enum.reverse, and we get the exact same answer back. So instead of using our defined function, we can use the inbuilt function as well. So as you can see that this pipeline operator is very handy whenever we want to do multiple transformations. So let us go back to our function of map, and what we want to do is this accumulator has to be piped to our function of reverse, and that's it. Now if we open up our terminal, let us recompile tutorials.list. Let us clear up everything, and this time if I have a list of 1, 2, 3 and 4, and if I just pipe this list to tutorials.list.map, and let us pass an anonymous function, so we can say let us take that element and let us multiply that element by 3 this time, and that's it. We get the right output back. Now again, coming back to our code editor, either you can use this pipeline operator or you can use the conventional syntax. So you can simply call the function of reverse, pass the element of accumulator, and let me take out this one. Let us also see how to write the specifications for this function. So let us use the module attribute of specifications for the function of map. Now the first parameter elements is going to be a list, and the type can be of anything, so anything goes over here. The next is a function. Now in order to denote that this is a function, we can use brackets over here, and here we can say that this function accepts an input. The input can be of any type, then it transforms that value and it also gives back some kind of a value back. So this is how we can define the function type. The next one is for the accumulator, and again accumulator is going to be a list of any. Now the return type is also going to be our list of any. Well, that's it for this one, and I will catch you in the next video.